The curse of the old jade ring returns. In the end, Queen Luong Chu was resurrected. Or just two faces of one person with multiple personalities? Are they demons and angels, hiding in the same body? Can love be a reason to justify selfishness, not even regretting your life? The seemingly perfect arrangement was destroyed by doubts. The outcome completely changed in the last minute. 19th month, year. This is probably the most important day in Huatu Tam's life. Since early morning, my eyes have been blinking continuously. Old people often say, the left eye blinks talent, the right eye blinks ears. But until now, it has never been said that blinking both eyes signals anything. Jiangnan's winter rain covers this deserted field. All four surfaces are covered with cold moisture, almost to the point of freezing. He felt cold all the way to his bones, like he was immersed in a basin of ice water. Everything before my eyes is hazy and blurry. In the cold dust and rain, this play lifts the curtain, revealing a stage made up of the fields themselves. After passing through the tunnels of that moment 5,000 years ago, all the actors have transformed into ruined skeletons, quietly lying in ancient graves surrounded by mud and sediment. The director is a man who claims to be a man of history, immortal, omniscient, and attentive to everything. Huatu Tam is the only audience member of this drama. This place is only a few kilometers away from Tai Lake. On all sides there are gray mounds. In the middle is a few thousand square meters of empty land. This is the scene of this archaeological excavation. Huatu Tam stood on a small mound of dirt. His boots and pants were covered in mud. His face under the umbrella was as gray as the sky. He knew that the mound right under his feet, 5,000 years ago, was more than 10 meters high, was a standard cone shape with a flat space at the top to serve as an altar for shamans and gods to converse together, like the pyramids of ancient Egypt or Mexico. The dry desert protects the Great Pyramid, but the humid air of Jiangnan and the floods of thousands of years ago washed this ancient altar into ruins of only 2 meters high long ago, it seems. Resembles a large grave Diki often seen in the country city. Standing here, you can have a panoramic view of the entire excavation site. A section of the tunnel that has been cleaned up now has to contain a lot of rainwater flowing down. Dozens of round holes can be clearly seen in the tunnel, all of which are ancient markers. These markers from south to north are divided into 3 rows, each row about 5 meters apart. It is truly astonishing that the residents of Jiangnan 5,000 years ago built such a large-scale palace, like the Knossos labyrinth on the Greek island of Crete. Huatu Tam remembers British Evans, who in 1990 discovered the labyrinth 5,000 years ago, shocking the world. Could this be the temple of the mysterious Liangzhu civilization 5,000 years ago? In addition to the mound at the foot of Huatu Tam, there are still several big tomb dikes around and dozens of other grave sites and altars surrounding here, just like all the stars revolve around the moon. Perhaps the desolate winter land before our eyes is the mysterious ancient capital of the ancient country of Liangzhu 5,000 years ago, the chief altar of the fatherland when facing the danger of destruction. A place where secrets finally buried. Sesame, open the door. That's right. Today is a special day. Something very important is about to happen. Huatu Tam shook his head and nodded. Suddenly, a soft humming voice rang out in his ear. Strange. Why do I hear these sounds? Reflexively, he looked around. There was no one next to the mound. Everyone was in the excavation pit. That sound seemed to come from the air, bringing with it the whisper of the ghost. It seemed like there were lips hiding in his ear, whispering, but he couldn't see her. Who is she? Huatu Tam tried her best to shake her head to chase away that strange sound. Surely it wasn't her own phantom hearing. He rubbed his eyes, only to see in the smoke and rain in front of him that the largest mound had been dug up. That may be the most important tombstone, not knowing what angel or devil is hiding underneath. But because it was winter and several days of constant rain and wind, there were not many workers at the excavation site. Only a few students from the Archaeological Institute remained. They were carefully and meticulously squatting in the excavated tunnel. Use a bamboo toothpick to remove soil from ceramic items. The constant rainy and windy weather of this Jiangnan winter is really not suitable for archaeological activities, but due to the recent discovery of a serious grave robbery phenomenon. We had to carry out emergency excavations before Tet. Otherwise, all the underground treasures will be carried away by grave robbers. A strange cold wind crept into his shirt, as if rising from the ground, making Huatutam shiver. He only saw darkness in front of his eyes, a dark shadow. A dark shadow was obscuring his sight, causing him to almost fall from the mound. It was like someone used a towel to cover his face, then quickly ran away. Huatutam opened his eyes wide, looking at the dark gray sky. It seemed that even the dark clouds had turned into strange faces. He suddenly thought of a chant, heaven and earth induction. Huatutam had some regrets. Why did he come here at this important moment? Just because of this potentially most important relic of the Liangzhu civilization, or because of the discovery of the most ancient earthen pyramid ruins in the east, or because of the discovery of a key that can solve the secret of the demise of the Liangzhu civilization? Yes, all of these things are very important to Huatutam. Because he is a research member of the Archaeological Research Institute, up until now, he has always been waiting for a discovery that will shock humanity, that can make him famous overnight, achieving countless things. Dreamer. But now there is still one thing that makes Huatutam feel uneasy, and uneasy thinking about it. Just talking to his wife on the phone last night, she sobbed and blamed her husband for why he was still outside at this time. That's right. Is there anything more important in this life than her? My eyelids kept blinking, even my heart was beating faster, unable to stay in this evil place anymore. Sorry, the dead buried underground in this site, the people who lived in this land 5,000 years ago. What does it have to do with me whether you can see the sun during the day or not? Let the remains and souls forever lie in the ground. I should not have come here to bother you. Huatutam decided to leave here, leave the land that smelled of gloom 5,000 years ago, leave the mysterious secret that once made countless people crazy about it. When he held up the umbrella and left this mound, screams suddenly rang out behind him, and there were also people calling his name, seemingly discovering Alibaba's treasure. He was forced to return to the front of the dug-up tomb. Humanity! I don't know which student shouted. At that moment, everyone was stunned into silence. The excavation scene returned to the quiet state of the tomb, with only the cold rain falling on Huatutam's face. At the bottom of one large crypt, hundreds of skeletons were arranged in order. Most of them were broken skulls and femurs, and even broken pieces of limb bones. Only a few skeletons were still relatively intact, revealing a horrifyingly crooked appearance, as if they had been tied up and thrown into the tomb. This is the martyrdom that people often talk about, using living people to bury with them or as sacrifices. This tragic scene was previously only seen in Ankou Andong and the tomb of Qin Shi Huang. What made the people present at the scene even more surprising was that in all the archaeological excavations of the Liangzhu civilization in history up to now, no living person had ever been found to be buried with them. Could it be that history? Will I have to write a new page from here? Facing these profound remains, Huatutam felt breathless. Could it be that I myself am not suffering from hallucinations? That the moans that echoed in my ears just now were the plaintive cries emitted by these tragic sacrifices before their deaths? These moans were hidden under an ancient tomb for 5,000 years, as if recorded on a disc, and have now been released and played. Hua Tutam began to imagine the tragic screams of the bereaved. It was as if in the stillness of Jiangnan's winter rain and dust, countless plaintive cries suddenly rang out, tearing Hua's eardrums. Tu Tam. He saw the pain and struggle of those men and women, young and old, on the brink of death, about the last ray of hope for survival, about the final curse of this life, about the curse of death. Final prayer for the next life. Then they were buried in the grave. Thick darkness covered their eyes, mud covered their mouths and nostrils, and they slowly stopped breathing until they reached another world. Asian! Hua Tutam let out a small cry. Suddenly, he had the same feeling. His mouth and nose seemed to be covered by something. His throat was sore and painful. He almost stopped breathing. He was like a drowning man being rescued, taking big breaths to let the cold, damp air flow into his chest. But he didn't want to believe the tragic feeling from before, so he immediately thought of another possibility. These pitiful people buried together did not cry or protest. They naturally walked on the path of death. For them, this is the will of the gods. Entering the grave is not the end of life, but the starting point of a journey towards another world. Members of the archaeological team have begun processing the tomb. Behind the crypt, traces of human impact can be clearly seen. Perhaps there is where the soul of the owner of the grave resides. The ground layer was already very thin. Hua Tutam jumped down to participate in the excavation and soon cleared a rectangular tomb. He saw her. That's right. She's lying there, a skeleton that's been sleeping for 5,000 years. Hua Tutam only felt that his heart seemed to stop beating and then restarted after a while because he saw only a skeleton. She is the owner of this huge tomb. In everyone's trembling eyes, Hua Tutam was the first to calm down. He carefully observed the remains of the owner of the tomb, who was the mysterious ruler of the legendary Liangchu civilization. Compared to the pitiful mourners out there, the remains of the owner of this tomb are relatively perfectly preserved. Here is equivalent to the underground palace of an ancient tomb. There must be a special protection method. Hua Tutam stared at the tomb owner's skull. Under the eyebrow bone, there were 2 deep eye holes, seemingly still emitting the ruler's eyes. A strange feeling. It seemed like she was still alive even though she had turned into a skeleton. She was looking straight into Hua Tutam's eyes with eyes full of mockery. They are conversing with each other in the tunnel with a gap of 5,000 years. But what makes Hua Tutam feel even more strange is that around the owner of the tomb, there are dozens of jade objects arranged in order. They are gathered into an almost circular shape. The remains of the owner of the tomb lie between cylindrical jade, disc-shaped jade, and axe-like jade hammer, like a grand exhibition of ancient jade items arranged in neat order around the tomb owner. Is this a special magic of the ancient kingdom of Liangzhu 5,000 years ago? Or is it a sign on the way for the dead to reach the underworld? Or is it some kind of signal left for members of the archaeological team 5 years ago? Visit thousands of years later? In the sound of falling winter snow, Hua Tutam felt a dizziness, like a cloud of smoky smoke rising. If we take the tomb owner's pelvis as the center of the circle and take the distance from the pelvis to any jade object as the radius, we will be able to draw a perfect circle. Almost all of the jade objects are all located on this circular arc. If you look down at these jade objects and skeletons from above, it will look like the symbol. Suddenly, a word jumped out in Hua Tutam's head. Complete. This is a fatal word. In the moment, Hua Tutam opened her mouth in surprise. Her ears seemed to echo the cry of a newborn baby. Ah, it's today.